terus abis itu ada start video.
Sebentar. Di sini saya klik share screen ini, cuman muncul screen whiteboard yang isian-isian yang ada di laptop saya aja. Terus atasnya cuman ada basic, advanced, dan file. Bawahnya ada share sound dan optimize for video clip.
Bukan, jangan diklik Bu, jangan diklik.
Oh, jangan diklik. Oke, sebentar.
Jadi kan itu ada kotak share screen, terus habis itu ada chat, ada partisipan. Ya Ibu, ada partisipan, betul?
Oh ya, ada partisipan.
Sebelahnya ada security.
Sebelahnya ada stop video. Security-nya nggak ada. Jadi
start video. Nah, start video ya. Start video itu
saya klik ya.
Di atasnya ada panahnya.
Iya.
Terus ada choose virtual background.
Sudah.
Nah, choose virtual background. Nah, terus habis itu di samping avatar beta itu ada tanda plus sebelah kanan, paling kanan. Ya, Ibu.
Oke.
Ada add image or video.
Sudah.
Nah, Ibu klik add image.
Sudah.
Nah, Ibu pilih virtual background-nya.
Sudah.
Oke, ada Ibu nemu virtual background-nya yang Ibu mau?
Sudah, nemu.
Sudah. Terus habis itu masuk lagi ke virtual background-nya itu kan ya Ibu?
Tulisannya your device doesn't support virtual background.
Nggak support kayaknya laptopnya Ibu ya.
Fotonya bisa nggak ya?
Nggak apa-apa ya.
Jadi ini saya klik dia virtual background-nya nggak bisa, tapi di bawah ada tulisannya your device doesn't support virtual background gitu.
Oh iya ya udah. Berarti nggak bisa kayaknya Bu.
Nggak bisa ya berarti?
Iya. Ya harus ganti device atau nggak apa-apa. Nggak apa-apa.
I want to introduce myself. My name is Bambang Yulianto, Vice Rector for Academic Affairs. Let me read the opening remarks of Rector of State University of Surabaya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan, and good morning from Surabaya. The honorable speakers, faculty members, and the participants, we would like to welcome you to the international conferences hosted by State University of Surabaya. Today, the international conferences consist of 6 international conferences covering 6 respective areas. The first, the 6th International Conference on Education and Innovation, ICE, hosted by Faculty
Check. 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 Welcome to the 4th International Conference. Ladies and gentlemen, while we are waiting for our operator start the conference, there are some notes I would like to say to you during the opening ceremony and also the parallel sessions. So please refer to general guidelines set by the committee of the online conference. Switch your device into mute during the sessions unless you are allowed and asked by the committee or the operator. So during the talks and speakers discussions, we are encouraged to participate by raising your hand or writing your questions in the chat box. And also, you are also encouraged to share the positive vibes of today's conference to your friends by your social media platforms, your WhatsApp groups, by sharing the links of the live streaming to your friends, so everybody knows that our conference today brings something positive for everybody. So we are still in the transition of the global pandemic of COVID-19. The normal is just right in the corner, but please stay healthy and stay happy for today's conference. Ladies and gentlemen, we will invite you to enjoy the profile of our institutions. The host of today's conference, Institute for Research and Community Service, and also the profile of State University of Surabaya. Operator, please.
A campus from the best city in Indonesia, a city with a long history of struggle and heroism. Welcome to Universitas Negeri Surabaya, a university with superior accreditation. Founded in 1964 as a teaching institute for education under the name IKIP Surabaya, to be an educational institution that carries the mandate as university that produces educators. Currently, UNESA, established as a center for education development, preservation of traditional arts, sports science, and inclusive services for people with disabilities. Growing to be a leading university, UNESA now manages 7 faculties consisting of 64 undergraduate study programs, 10 vocational programs, and 31 postgraduate study programs. The main campus is located in Lidawetan, Surabaya with 7 main buildings. They are Rectorate Building, Board of Learning Development and Quality Assurance Building, and 3 faculty buildings including Faculty of Science Education, Faculty of Language and Art, Faculty of Sports Science, as well as postgraduate programs. And here is the oldest campus, Ketintang area. There are 4 faculty buildings and 1 vocational program building that includes Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences, Faculty of Engineering, Faculty of Economics and Business, Faculty of Social Sciences and Law, and vocational programs. Managing 2 fields of study, education-based and non-educational study programs, UNESA is committed to improving the quality of education, fostering scientific traditions in research, promoting the spirit of community service, collaborating with stakeholders, and performing excellent, transparent, and accountable services. Reaching independent autonomic higher studies, welcoming the next step of UNESA as a legal entity higher education institution.
Selamat datang di Universitas Negeri Surabaya. Kami dengan bangganya mengajak Anda untuk lebih dekat dan mengenal tentang UNESA. Kami terus berkomitmen tidak hanya menyelenggarakan pendidikan terbaik bagi tenaga pendidik profesional masa depan, juga sangat berfokus untuk menciptakan lulusan yang berkarakter, tangguh, kreatif, inovatif, dan mampu berkolaborasi pada siapapun, berbudaya yang humanis dengan spesifikasi yang unggul dalam hal seni, olahraga, dan pendidikan disabilitas yang komprehensif.
Education is not only the key of our existence, but also the spirit of struggle of UNESA. Becoming one of the campuses that organize teacher professional education programs that produce professional educators, UNESA is committed to organizing various empowerment programs as a stimulus to develop faculty members and students, research development, and innovative product as the solution to problems in the society. UNESA, House of the Champions. A supportive ecosystem in producing competitive and well-qualified human resources with global perspective to compete on both national and international levels. In order to create a healthy learning ecosystem, UNESA continue to provide the best service with various quality facilities, national or international scale, in the field of education, science, and sports. UNESA continuously commit to provide an outstanding service and friendly for people with disabilities. Supported with adequate facilities and infrastructure, a competitive environment, and a continuously moving to create a conservation campus. Futsal International Sports Arena, Container Students Dormitory, Sports Center, Language Center, Geraha UNESA, Student Activity Center, Jogging Track, Equestrian Field, International Basketball Arena, Student Activity Units, Art Development, Character and Personality Building, Sports, Outdoor Activities.
UNESA, 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 UNESA,
UNESA.
UNESA, satu langkah di depan.
Lembaga Penelitian dan Pengabdian kepada Masyarakat LPPM Universitas Negeri Surabaya. Sebelumnya merupakan gabungan dari dua lembaga, yaitu Lembaga Penelitian dan Lembaga Pengabdian kepada Masyarakat yang akhirnya pada tahun 2012 dua lembaga tersebut digabung menjadi Lembaga Penelitian dan Pengabdian kepada Masyarakat LPPM. Hingga saat ini, LPPM memiliki komitmen yang kukuh untuk terus menghasilkan penelitian dan pengabdian kepada masyarakat yang inovatif di bidang kependidikan dan non-kependidikan. Dalam mewujudkan cita-cita tersebut, LPPM UNESA memiliki 8 pusat studi sebagai berikut. Pusat Riset dan Penguatan Inovasi. Pusat RPI mengelola kegiatan penelitian, menyusun naskah akademik, dan regulasi terkait riset dan penguatan inovasi. Hal itu dilakukan untuk meningkatkan jumlah penelitian dari tahun ke tahun, serta menjaring kerjasama dengan puluhan mitra, sehingga mampu memberikan kontribusi kepada masyarakat. Hingga akhirnya, tahun ini, Pusat RPI di LPPM UNESA telah meraih klaster mandiri. Berbagai penelitian yang lahir dari Pusat Riset dan Penguatan Inovasi dilakukan dengan proses manajemen yang terstruktur untuk menghasilkan penelitian yang berkualitas dalam pengembangan keilmuan dan memiliki manfaat untuk menyelesaikan berbagai problematika yang ada. Pusat Pengabdian kepada Masyarakat dan Pemasaran Iptek. Pusat PKMPI mengelola pelaksanaan pengabdian kepada masyarakat di UNESA. Tahun ini, pengabdian kepada masyarakat UNESA meraih klaster mandiri. Hal ini juga ditunjukkan dari berbagai kegiatan pengabdian kepada masyarakat yang telah dilaksanakan di berbagai tempat di Indonesia. Meski demikian, kegiatan pengabdian kepada masyarakat harus ditingkatkan baik kuantitas maupun kualitasnya untuk semakin memberikan dampak positif bagi masyarakat. Pengelolaan dilaksanakan secara sinergis dari hulu ke hilir, baik dengan menganalisis kebutuhan produk unggulan dari masyarakat sebagai bahan kajian untuk diteliti maupun memenuhi kebutuhan penelitian yang telah dirancang sesuai dengan kebutuhan yang dicanangkan oleh Kementerian Pendidikan, Kebudayaan, Riset, dan Teknologi. Hal ini dilakukan sebagai upaya UNESA mendukung pelaksanaan program pemerintah dan mewujudkan kebermanfaatan hasil riset yang dihasilkan bagi publik. Kegiatan penelitian dan pengabdian kepada masyarakat di UNESA mulai tahun 2019 dikelola menggunakan SIM yang dinamai SIM LPPM. Seluruh proses mulai pengajuan proposal, review proposal, sampai unggah laporan dilakukan melalui SIM LPPM. Produk penelitian dan pengabdian kepada masyarakat telah dihilirisasi melalui web komersialisasi LPPM dan dipasarkan secara offline dan online dengan menggandeng Tokopedia sebagai salah satu market online terkemuka. Pusat Inkubasi Bisnis dan Teknologi. Pusat Inkubasi Bisnis dan Teknologi LPPM UNESA mengelola hasil inovasi penelitian berbasis teknologi yang menyelenggarakan kegiatan inkubasi dengan penyeleksian produk teknologi dan calon tenan, menyediakan fasilitas pengembangan sinergi kemitraan kerjasama teknis dan kelembagaan, serta menyediakan layanan pendampingan aksesibilitas usaha yang bertujuan mendorong komersialisasi hasil inovasi penelitian. Berbagai produk penelitian ini harus terdistribusi dengan baik sesuai dengan target, sehingga diharapkan LPPM UNESA dapat memiliki produk unggulan yang bermanfaat bagi publik. Pusat Hak Kekayaan Intelektual dan Sertifikasi Produk Inovasi. Pusat HKI SPI LPPM mengelola kekayaan intelektual bagi seluruh sivitas akademika UNESA. Pusat HKI SPI LPPM UNESA pernah meraih 2 penghargaan bergengsi dari Direktorat Jenderal Kekayaan Intelektual Kementerian Hukum dan HAM Republik Indonesia pada ajang Sinergi Kementerian dan Lembaga dalam rangka Perlindungan Kekayaan Intelektual Indonesia. Pusat HKI SPI LPPM UNESA ini memberikan jaminan bahwa ide-ide dari penelitian, PKM, dan pembuatan produk unggulan dari sivitas akademika UNESA memiliki perlindungan hukum terhadap ide-ide brilian yang diciptakan. Hal itu dilakukan guna peningkatan kualitas dan kuantitas HKI dan khususnya paten dari seluruh sivitas akademika UNESA. Pusat Pembinaan Ideologi. PPI memiliki tujuan melakukan pengkajian, pengamalan, dan pengembangan bidang ideologi bagi sivitas akademika UNESA yang berpijak pada penelitian dan pengabdian kepada masyarakat. Sasaran program PPI berorientasi untuk mengembangkan kajian akademik, menumbuh kembangkan budaya implementasi ideologi Pancasila, serta mengembangkan kerjasama dengan pihak masyarakat, pemerintah, dan swasta terkait kegiatan penguatan ideologi Pancasila. PPI LPPM UNESA juga secara kontinu melaksanakan berbagai program untuk meningkatkan edukasi dan menanamkan nasionalisme pada sivitas akademika UNESA secara khusus dan pada masyarakat secara umum. Pusat Studi Literasi. Pusat Studi Literasi berpumpun pada peningkatan kualitas dan kuantitas kegiatan berliterasi. Peningkatan budaya literasi di UNESA dengan mengembangkan lingkungan literasi, peningkatan relevansi dan produktivitas penelitian pengembangan dan pengabdian kepada masyarakat terkait literasi, penguatan kapasitas inovasi melalui penguatan kerjasama bertema literasi. Pusat Studi Literasi LPPM UNESA juga berkomitmen untuk membangun budaya literasi yang kuat sebagai dasar berpikir para akademisi, sehingga diharapkan dapat meningkatkan mutu sivitas akademika dan masyarakat, meningkatkan kepuasan kerja dan produktivitas layanan literasi, serta meningkatkan jejaring kerjasama dalam peningkatan kualitas pelayanan melalui berbagai kegiatan literasi. Pusat Studi ASEAN. Pusat Studi ASEAN berfokus dalam menggali potensi untuk menghasilkan rencana strategis dengan menjalin kerjasama antar bidang dalam lingkup ASEAN, baik dalam bidang penelitian maupun pendidikan. Kerjasama dilakukan dengan berbagai stakeholder, seperti Atase Pendidikan dan Kebudayaan Manila, Filipina, dan beberapa universitas luar negeri untuk meningkatkan peran dan posisi Universitas Negeri Surabaya sebagai salah satu universitas unggulan di ASEAN. Pusat Komisi Etik Penelitian. Pusat Komisi Etik Penelitian memiliki peran penting untuk mengawasi agar penelitian yang dilaksanakan dengan subjek manusia telah sesuai dengan prinsip-prinsip good clinical practice. Berbagai metode penelitian juga diberi penilaian dan masukan-masukan terkait pendekatan etik dari protokol penelitian yang dilakukan oleh Sivitas Akademika UNESA yang bekerja sama dengan Komisi Etik Penelitian dan Pelayanan Indonesia (KEPIN), serta memberikan rekomendasi keterangan lolos kaji etik bagi Sivitas Akademika UNESA agar penelitian sesuai dengan prinsip-prinsip GCP. Selain 8 pusat studi tersebut, LPPM UNESA selalu menjamin proses mutu dan telah memiliki gugus penjamin mutu yang berfungsi sebagai bagian dari kontrol kebijakan yang telah ditentukan. Penjaminan mutu merupakan kegiatan untuk memastikan suatu hasil dari aktivitas yang dilakukan oleh unit kerja menghasilkan luaran yang berkualitas. Gugus penjamin mutu LPPM berfungsi melakukan pemantauan, pengukuran, analisa dan evaluasi kinerja mulai dari penyusunan program kerja pada setiap unit kerja di lingkungan LPPM hingga pelaksanaan evaluasi akhir tahunan yang melibatkan seluruh unit kerja yang ada di LPPM.
Perguruan tinggi diharapkan menjadi pusat inovasi yang dapat diaplikasikan untuk menyelesaikan berbagai persoalan masyarakat. Oleh karena itu, Lembaga Penelitian dan Pengabdian kepada Masyarakat berkomitmen untuk mendukung tercapainya iklim yang produktif bagi proses penelitian dan pengabdian di UNESA. Kami terus mengembangkan jejaring kerjasama baik di tingkat nasional hingga internasional yang berkaitan dengan penelitian ataupun pengabdian kepada masyarakat. Kami berharap kiprah LPPM dapat mendukung tujuan UNESA untuk teguh mengukuhkan keilmuan dan memberikan kontribusi kepada masyarakat, bangsa, dan negara.
selamat pagi Bapak Ibu, honorable speakers, professors, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 4th International Conference on Research and Academic Community Service hosted by Institute for Research and Community Service, State University of Surabaya. Live from Surabaya, Saturday, 10th of September 2022. Would like to say thank you very much for joining with us, Vice Rector for Academic Affairs, Professor Bambang Yulianto, and also the Head of Institutes of Research and Community Service, Professor Dr. Dani. Thank you, Professor, for the guidance and the support to the committee to make this event happen. Would like to say thank you very much and good morning from Surabaya, distinguished speakers of today's conference. First is Professor Bambang Yulianto from Universitas Negeri Surabaya, and also like to say thank you to Dr. Adrat Chinkau from Thailand, and also thank you, Guten Morgen, to Dr. Jacob Haynes from Netherlands Cancer Institute, and also Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Najib bin Muhammad Yassin from Malaysia. We also thank you very much to our partner, the representative of IEEE, Chair of IEEE Community Society Chapter Indonesia, Bapak Dr. Bapak Stianudoko, Professor, senior members of the State University of Surabaya, and also special our participants and the committee. Ladies and gentlemen, today's conference is organized by Institute of Research and Community Service, State University of Surabaya, with the funding support from Directorate General of Research and Development, Ministry of Education, Research and Technology 2022, with the theme of Spreading Innovation in Research and Community Service in the post-pandemic era. Ladies and gentlemen, so to begin today's conference, I would like to invite you to listen to the national anthem of Indonesia, Indonesia Raya. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, for your participation. So currently, for your information, the conference has accepted and reviewed over 170 papers to be presented in this conference from Indonesia and some other countries in Southeast Asian regions. So it is expected that at the end of the conference, the selected papers will be published through appointed journals, international conference series proceedings by reputable publishers, and also book chapters by committee. So, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, we proceed to the remarks from the Rector of State University of Surabaya. So, for this opportunity, we will be watching Rector's remarks addressed by the Vice Rector for Academic Affairs, Professor Dr. Bambang Yulianto.
I want to introduce myself. My name is Bambang Yulianto, Vice Rector for Academic Affairs. Let me read the opening remarks of Rector of State University of Surabaya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan, and good morning from Surabaya. The honorable speakers, faculty members, and the participants, we would like to welcome you to the international conferences hosted by State University of Surabaya. Today, the international conferences consist of 6 international conferences covering 6 respective areas. The first, the 6th International Conference on Education and Innovation, ICE, hosted by Faculty of Education. The second, the 6th Mathematics, Informatics, Science and Education International Conference, MISEX, hosted by Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Science. The third, the 5th International Conference on Vocational Education and Electrical Engineering, ICVEE, hosted by Faculty of Engineering and Vocational Program. Fourth, the 3rd International Conference on Cultural Studies and Applied Linguistics, ICCSAL, hosted by Faculty of Languages and Arts. Fifth, the 2nd International Conference on Social Science and Law, ICSSL, hosted by Faculty of Social Sciences and Law. Then finally, the 6th, the 4th International Conference on Research and Academic Community Services, ICRACOS 2022, at the Institute of Research and Community Services. Ladies and gentlemen, international conferences become universities' annual event to accommodate researchers, practitioners, and relevant parties of universities' community service programs, from government officials to private sectors. This year, the conferences focus on some emerging issues covering the importance of innovation and resilience in the post-pandemic era and the needs for stronger collaboration for future development. In this occasion, we invite prominent speakers of the respective fields to share their insight relevant topics and ideas for the community from 13 countries, from Asia, Europe, Africa, North America, and South America. We thank you, our respective speakers from Australia, Brazil, Germany, Japan, Morocco, Malaysia, the Philippines, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, South Korea, Thailand, the Netherlands, and the United States. Speakers, delegates, and participants, in this opportunity, I would like to extend my gratitude to the all parties to host the webinar today. First, keynote speakers and invited speakers. The second, partners and university partners, especially our colleague chairs of the ICRACOS Communication Society Chapter Indonesia, Dr. Bambang Setianugroho. Third, we thank you, deans, professors, and senior faculty members. Fourth, organizing committee and the coordinator from Center of Artificial Intelligence and Scientific Publication, IP. Thank you for the hard work and commitment to manage the conference and other academic forums at the university. And the last, we thank you all participants. Speaker, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Rector of UNESA and the institution, I would like to officially open today's conference with the name of God. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We do hope the conference gives positive insights to the students to build our community. For all participants, happy conferencing and good luck. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Rector, Professor Dr. Nur Hasan. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your participations to join the Vice Rector for Academic Defense for today's address. So, ladies and gentlemen, as stated by our Vice Rector, that today's international conference is hosted by State University of Surabaya, features 6 international conferences in several respective fields. Now, please join me to listen to the testimonial statements and commitment from the chairs of the respective international conference.
I am Professor Bambang Julianto, Vice Rector for Academic Affairs. International Joint Conference is our commitment to encourage academicians and faculty members to enhance innovation and collaboration through research. The International Joint Conference provides a space for scholars, researchers, and practitioners to share and exchange their novel insights and inspire new direction of research and application relevant with the post-pandemic situation. And also, it is expanding network among scholars and strengthening institutional academic collaboration. It is in line with university's strategic plan that by 2025, we hope to be a recognized teaching university in the region. Welcome to State University of Surabaya, Universitas Negeri Surabaya, UNESA. We are committed to enhancing our academic contribution and collaboration to build sustainable development for our community and humanity. Thank you.
This International Conference on Education and Innovation is a conference held annually by the Faculty of Education of UNESA, Universitas Negeri Surabaya. This is to facilitate academics from all over Indonesia and discuss critical ideas related to the development of education both in Asia and the world. Underlying phenomena, events, data this year's each theme is inspiring global collaboration for future innovation and resilience in facing education challenge during the pandemic. And the second reason for choosing this theme is because we are aware that globalization is a major issue
In this era, moreover, the world is being hit by the pandemic that causes significant change to occur in all aspects of life, including education.
MISEC 2022 actually is international conference. This conference is conducted regularly. It's like an annual event for the Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences. For the big impact, we want to contribute in the international academic research. So this event actually, I hope, can have a significant impact to the development of research in not only in natural sciences, but also in education.
This year is the third time for Universitas Negeri Surabaya to host ICCSAL International Conference following its success in the previous years. Currently, I'm pleased to inform you that there has been an increase in both quality and quantity of the papers that will be presented in the third ICCSL 2022. Therefore, I trust that in the future, this conference will be able to grow into one prestigious naval conference by actively collaborating with various professional associations in the field of cultural studies and applied linguistics.
IEEE Indonesia section through Communication Society Indonesian section will support ICVEE. Accepted paper will be submitted for inclusion into IEEE Explore subject to meeting IEEE Explore scope and quality requirement. With this conference, communication and collaboration can be established between researchers and university in improving world-class research publications.
The name of conference is International Conference on Social Science and Law. The theme of the conference is Rethinking the Transformation of Society in Pandemic Era, Contribution of Social Science, Education, and Law. We choose the theme, the Rethinking the Transformation of Society in Post-Pandemic Era, because we have seen that our society, not only in Indonesia, but around the world, we face the problem, namely the post-pandemic. How the society has changed after this pandemic situation.
This conference is organized by the Institute of Research and Community Services Universitas Negeri Surabaya to accommodate all researchers and academics in Universitas Negeri Surabaya. The theme of this conference was chosen because we want to strengthen innovation in research and community services in the post-pandemic area after the COVID outbreak. And we are also inviting academics, researchers, and practitioners to submit mostly case studies of practice, theoretical papers, empirical studies, and other papers that address any topic within the broad areas of social, humanities, science, and technology. And the purpose and the aim of the conference is to accommodate all researcher and community services activities in order to increase international publication in accordance with the key performance indicator Universitas Negeri Surabaya.
Thank you very much. Amazing committee. Thank you very much for the chairs of the respective conferences. Thank you very much for your hard work and commitment to make this conference happen. Great job from the company of the respective conference. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is one of our favorite sessions, photo sessions. Now, I would like to invite you to turn on your camera for these sessions for about 1 minute. Big smile is expected from you. Don't forget to smile for the next 1 minute. I would like to invite the operators to snap your smiles randomly, please. Yes. Okay, I can see some big smiles from our friends and colleagues, and also our fellows from Malaysia and Myanmar. Ladies and gentlemen, so today's conference and also is part of the commitment of our university as one of the most leading research and teaching educational university in Indonesia with the spirit of one step ahead, satu langkah di depan. So we invite academics, researchers, practitioners, and also students to share their theoretical papers, empirical studies, and other papers to be addressed in this conference. So I agree with the Vice Rector that during these critical moments, we believe that innovation and resilience through strong collaborations, bringing more impacts to broader audience. Okay, still 30 seconds. Big smiles from the audience. Don't forget, the operator is still taking some pictures of you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. So we do hope today's conference sparks more ideas and initiations in the area of engineering, STEM education, and also social and humanities. And we believe one thing, that all these research will be beneficial for the community. Okay, thank you very much for the photo sessions. Thank you for the big smiles. Thank you, operators. We are going to share your pictures later on by the committee. All right, so excellencies, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, so we are about to proceed to the plenary sessions. Thank you very much for your participations during the opening ceremony. So we will see you again in a few seconds for the plenary sessions while the committee are preparing for some stops. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we are proceeding to the plenary sessions. So in this plenary session, we are delighted to have 4 keynote speakers. This session will be divided into 2 sessions. The first is with the first keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Bambang Yulianto, and also Dr. Anurat Shinkau from Budapest University of Thailand. So for the first plenary sessions, our colleagues, Fitria Indah, will be serving as the moderator of the first plenary sessions. So I'd like to say hello to our moderator. So Ms. Fitria Indah is now live from Bali. Good morning. Thank you very much, Ms. Indah, for having yourself with us this morning to lead the first plenary sessions. So I'd like to give the screen to you, Ms. Indah, for the first plenary session.
And mute the microphone. You're able to unmute your microphone when we have a question and answer session. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, first of all, we would like to express our utmost gratitude to Professor Dr. Bambang Yulianto, MPD, and Professor Assistant Dr. Anurat Anantanaton for joining us today. We appreciate it to take in time your busy schedule to be with us today. Without further ado, I would like to welcome the first keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Bambang Yulianto, MPD. But before, please give me, sir, 1 to 2 minutes to read the profile. Professor Dr. Bambang Yulianto, MPD, completed his bachelor degree from IKIP Surabaya and continued his master degree in IKIP Malang. His major in Pendidikan Bahasa Indonesia or Indonesian Language Education, and continued his doctoral degree with the same expertise in Universitas Negeri Malang. He is actively participated in seminar and workshop and published so many articles and books. Some of them are Synergy of Industrial Sector for the Implementation of MBKM Curriculum, where innovators and investors meet strategies to implement independent learning programs. Understanding Indonesian people through literature, indigenous psychosociology perspectives, children language development, psycholinguistics perspective, Japanese compound sentences of synthetic structure acquisition in university student speech, and development of short Indonesian lesson plan to improve teacher performance, the implementation of school literacy movement in elementary school. His work experiences, or as the head of Department of Indonesian Language and Literature Education in 2004, the Dean of Faculty of Languages and Arts in 2015, the head of Research Institute in State University of Surabaya in 2008, and now as the Vice Rector of Academics. And today, Professor Dr. Bambang Yulianto, MPD, will deliver his presentation entitled Emancipated Learning, Bridging Universities and Schools for Future Teacher Education. Ladies and gentlemen, with a massive round of applause, let us welcome Bapak Profesor Dr. Bambang Yulianto, MPD. Time is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning from Surabaya. I'm Professor Bambang Yulianto, currently servicing as Vice Rector for Academic Affairs of State University of Surabaya, Indonesia. Thank you to all the audience for joining the plenary session. I'm happy to be here with you to share my information on educational policy during and after the pandemic. I also thank the committee for having me here. Have you read the slide? Okay, please. Today I'm going to talk about the current issues of what we call emancipated learning, Merdeka Belajar, or as the ministry says, emancipated learning, and at the time she said independent learning in relation to preparing for future teacher education. I believe this issue is crucial as the reflection during the disruptive moment of post-pandemic that there should be restructuration of our education, especially for education majors. Okay. Last year, during a session with the Director General of Teachers and Educators, Dr. Iwan Sahril delivered a clear presentation entitled Optimizing Teacher Education Institutes in the Development of Future Teachers. This meaning was also conveyed at the LPTK, Teacher Education Institute Leadership meeting on March 14, 2021. There are three aspects that also serve as the basis of revitalizing the development of future teachers, namely the first, designing and preparing future teachers based on the Indonesian educational philosophy. The second, implementing the concept of emancipated learning or independent learning in the development of teacher education. And the third, encouraging LPTK, Teacher Education Institute, to create innovation and developing teacher education. From three aspects, there are some proposed strategies taken by university, namely, the first, collaboration at school levels between one school and other school need to collaborate to increase the quality as an action. The second, improving recruitment strategy for teachers and headmasters, not only about seniority. The third, IT-based educational platform that promotes critical thinking and collaboration for the students. Fourth, world-class universities to strengthen industrial and global collaboration. And finally, simplifying educational accreditation. So education not only about administrative stuff, but the question is, do the strategies meet the expected outcomes of future professional teachers? I think the strategies might cover the surface issues only. We need more comprehensive and careful strategies. And next slide, okay. Now, we are discussing the continuum process of preparing for future teachers. I underline the continuum because it should be integrative and comprehensive policy. Future teachers should not only be under the Teacher Education Professional Programs, PPG, or Teacher Education Institute, LPTK. It should be continuum from educational study programs, Bachelor of Education, S1, Teacher Education Professional Program, PPG, and workplace. In this context, is schools. Through the involvement of these aspects, it's providing opportunities for students to engage with real world experience. Real world experience at future workplace. There are two proposed concepts. First, bridging Bachelor of Education students, S1, teacher candidates with future workplace, in this case, schools, as early as possible during their time at university. Early year. The second, comprehensive planning to implement thematic programs. The proposed concepts are in line with Ministry of Education policy of Merdeka Belajar, emancipated learning or independent learning, with the core idea of granting the student to enhance learning experience outside their main study program to meet the professional workplace. Maybe headmaster. In the next slide. Now, let's compare the current condition of educational program, especially for educational students, and the proposed program to bridge the student with real world experience, experiencing real setting of schools. Previously, students only have opportunities for teaching practice at school for 2 months only. It's a very limited experience for teacher candidates. Moreover, this experience is programmed in the last year of study. Whether they do from first to third years, why don't we integrate the campus activities with real world or hands-on experience at their future workplace? We need something new that's more comprehensive. Here is our proposed idea. First, all courses at S1, Bachelor of Education study program, require the student to engage with activities at school. For example, observation, interview, mini research for a project, teaching, assistantship, etc. These activities should be started as early as possible during their university time, meaning students may go to school since the first year, beginning year. It gives students early picture of their future workplace that's not only giving them experience, but also other skills will help them more critical and confidence at the university during the discussion and other academic activities. Now, we can we can see how is one example of teaching scenario you may modify based on the condition at your study programs. In general, courses are set into 16 meetings, including midterm and final exam. We can set 2 to 4 meetings. Lecture should provide the theoretical or conceptual information, including simple instruments and instruction before sending their students to the schools. Preparation and background knowledge is always important for the students. Next, during their time at school, students can do some activities such as observation to the classroom activities, school program and management, interview with students or teachers and others, several documenting. At the end of semester, a student return to the class will write reports of what they have observed from the school. During this session, students may present, demonstrate, give recommendation, criticize, and also propose new ideas. These activities should be planned and executed and integrated comprehensively. It will lead into the following benefits, advantage. First, developing literacy, critical thinking, and interpersonal or collaboration skill. And the second, for affective skill. Student will have empathy with student, teacher, and school. This is the real setting for future workplace. For the second issues, we have to think and focus on implementation of comprehensive thematic programs. Emancipated learning proposed by Minister of Education recommend its major programs or activities that can be adopted outside campus. Internship, village empowerment, teaching assistantship. This is the focus of our discussion today. Social humanitarian project, independent project, entrepreneurships, student mobility or student exchange, and research internship or assistantship. This thematic program provides something new in educational trends. Let's compare the trend of current program with the past program. Okay. This is the example of comparison between the implementation of teaching practice for educational students in the past and current implementation. In the term of duration, in the past, students only had 8 weeks or 2 months for teaching practice. Currently, students have to spend up to 20 weeks at school for teaching practice. Students have longer duration, bigger opportunity to learn. In the term of activities, students have longer duration. The second and activities. Okay. In the term of activities, students only had to create syllabus and teach at the school. This is called mata kuliah, subject matter. But now, in the other, students not only teach and create the syllabus, they also have to learn about school, about classroom management, course development, infrastructure management, course evaluation, extracurricular management, and annual academic plan. With longer duration and more activities, current teaching practice has 20 credits SKS, with bigger compared with the past teaching practice. It's only 6 credits. Okay. Please stop pause. How to manage this program to prepare future teachers? Study programs are encouraged to restructure the curriculum to prepare the student with the workplace. The curriculum should adjust with current paradigm, especially after the disruption of the pandemic. The issues are more complex and require more skills. So, course design should promote case method, project-based, and implementation of real-world experience or learning. The thematic comprehensive curriculum based on respective study programs to implement the emancipated learning. What if study programs are not ready yet? University should give global framework for the implementation, and study programs may also adopt the university framework of the thematic curriculum. It's not ready yet for the emancipated learning curriculum. For example, Indonesia currently 38% of total programs have implemented thematic curriculum based on the respective study programs. It's okay. The information needs a process, but we believe we are now in a good progress. Another thing that we need to take action as Teacher Education Institute, LPTK, the provision of integrated teacher education laboratory. We are only familiar with laboratories for science, engineering, sports, language, maybe. What about teacher education? We need lab school that should be managed comprehensively and integrated with Bachelor of Education program at the university. It is just like educational clinics, hospitals, at medical educational program. Medical education will send their medical students to clinics and hospitals for real world experience with doctor observing patients. University can also expand collaboration with other schools for wider opportunities of practice. Study program should conduct reorientation and revitalization of the curriculum that include course design, hands-on practicum or instruments, evaluation, and monitoring. Lastly, Teacher Education Institute to take part of the recruitment process for future teacher should start from the university enrollment. So far, the university selection is conducted nationally without specific qualification for education program, PET program. Even after they graduate, without major intervention of Teacher Education Institute. This is the time for Teacher Education Institute to take part for bigger role to prepare better future teachers through comprehensive selection, comprehensive recruitment. Thank you.
To create good teachers, which will then impact on the quality of student skills and ability. So this is going to be really interesting, and I know you have a lot of questions, but Institution of Development Administration, or NIDA, Thailand. He then took doctoral degree in public administration from Brawijaya University, Malang. Some of his works are People Satisfaction in Public Service of Bangpa Municipality, Thailand, and then the study of people perception and understanding in project construction of metal factory in Mainum Kusuk district, Pluoc Dang district. I'm so sorry, maybe my pronunciation is not really good in Thailand words. And then we also have the works for Thailand strategy toward Asian communities countries, public service management in local government, case study of solid waste management in Pattaya city. And we also have a book entitled Public Policy, which is published by Faculty of Political Science and Law from Burapha University. And the last, the implementation of sufficiency economic philosophy in Thailand, an innovative approach for sustainable development in Southeast Asia countries, which is presented as ARTSPA Indonesia International and IAPA Annual Conference. Some of his work experiences are head of Department of Plan and Budget, Office of Chonburi Provincial Organization Administration in 2001, and then lecturer at Faculty of Political and Science and Law from 2006 until today, Vice Dean, Faculty of Political Science and Law, Burapha University in 2008 until 2011, and then head of program of doctoral and master degree, Burapha University, Thailand. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Professor Assistant Dr. Anurat Anantanatron. Time is yours, Professor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody, and all of the participants and another other keynote speaker. Can you see me? Okay. Thank you for inviting me to join this conference. So that I would like to know who are the show about presentation. You and me. Presentation PowerPoint.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. Okay. So now I don't see the presentation.
Oh yeah, we cannot see the. Me committee.
Okay, I see that.
All right, thank you.
For this conference, the topic about innovation research after pandemics. So in my field in the public administration, and I'm interested in the public policy. So today I would like to presentations about the policy for regency the economic in Thailand after pandemics. And the topic of my is about innovation and technology, the way to the resiliency, the tourism after pandemic in Thailand. Please next slide. Again, just again. Next. Before to presentation, I would like to summary in the situations of COVID-19 in Thailand. The first case of COVID-19 in Thailand be first on February 2020. Last time is about alpha COVID-19 disaster. The first time, when we met the COVID, I think the same of the country, we shocked about the pandemic of this. Thailand is trying to have the policy for protection in the lockdown policy and something like that. And the second wave from the COVID-19 come to Thailand in the end of 2020 is the Delta COVID. And the second COVID is very dangerous in Thailand because we have many people to die today, and around 50,000 case in the get the COVID case, the COVID disaster. So COVID-19 still in Thailand maybe around 2 years, 2019 until 2021. In that time, everything in Thailand stopped. We locked down. We have the policy to. The second, in the middle of 2020, people got the vaccine and number of the patients decreased. Therefore, the government declared the next measure open country and international travel, like Phuket Sandbox, test and go policy. And then on 1st July 2020, the government declared full option country policy. Thailand passed and start campaign tourism Thailand again. This next presentation. Next again. This next again. The impact of pandemic. To the Thai country economy. So that before pandemic, the top tier of the income from the economic Thailand come from the key sector. In the first, tourism sector business. The second, industrial business. So motorbila and electric industrial, and the third is the food business. But between the COVID, everything is stopped. The tourist decrease. Can you see, if you see the in the presentation, pandemic impact to tourism in Thailand in 2019. The international tourism Thailand allowed the international is 143%, and in the 2020 just only 10. So that it means that the COVID impact to the tourism is affect to all of the sector, business sector in the, for example, in the five, public tourist transportation, hotel, restaurant, tour agency, and entertainment, tourism place, souvenir shop. And that is affect to all of the manpower in the business tourism sector to business. This is about the impact to the flight. All flight, international flight and domestic flight in Thailand stop. We cannot go to everywhere. So that business flight is finished. This next. This is a hotel, Indian hotel. The big chain in Thailand in hotel big chain is allowed six chain, six brand, AWC, and in impact to the manpower in the entertainment. 95.1 of the manpower in the entertainment business is the stop, cannot work. In the agency, the 99 of manpower in the agency lost job. In the transportation, 88.7 of the manpower in the transport business lost job. So that the impact of COVID-19 have a lot of effect to the all of sector of in the tourism in Thailand. So we would like to talk about after pandemic, how we can regency economic in Thailand. Again, come back to Thailand again, because I think in the a lot of country in the ASEAN, the tourism is the important sector to about in the country economic. This next. The number of Thailand international travel before pandemic, 2014 and 2018, is in the highest in the 2015. We have 20% from the international. In the 2018, we just have only around 2.5 around 8%. Next. This the number of country travel country come to Thailand in 2012. The Chinese travel in the first in the quarter 1 in the 2021. Sorry, 2021. Chinese travel around 1 million and 200,000. This is only quarter, first quarter. And the second country from Malaysia and Russia, Laos, Japan, India, and Korea, France, Germany, and UK. This is the number, so that the Chinese tourism is very, very important in Thailand. Tourism business. It's next. Okay. This income from international travel 2014 and 2018. If you see the presentation, you can see 2015 we have 25% from the international travel, but in 2018 we have only 9% from the income from the international. We lost allow 20% from the COVID. Okay, please take. This is the graph is show that the number of international travel before pandemic from Chinese and Chinese in the number 1 is next. That I says in Thailand the highest of the international income from the 3 sector. The first, tourism business. The second, industrial business, and the third, food product, rice, fish, sugar, food, something like that. In terms of the tourism sector is important past economic sector. The GDP is about 6 or 5%. The highest revenue is Thai baht is around to 2.5 trillion. The tourist spending about 5,000 baht per person in 2015. and it's expected to the increase in the future. The Thai government focus quality tourism to solve $0 tourist from China. Next. The challenge of regency tourism after pandemic. I think after pandemic, every country would like to look for the budget or for the money to be the improve improve the economy of the country, so that we will look for what the way to we can the quick key to regency economic, the country economic again. In Thailand, we focus on the tourism business because the tourism is Thailand has a lot of tourism resource. So, but the challenge of the regency is about one. The people in the world still worry in the COVID pandemic. Okay? So that if you see now the Chinese people, the Chinese people still not to go away, still only in the Chinese country. The competitive in the tourist market after pandemic, that I says a lot of countries would like to invite the tourists come to on the country, so that in the field of tourism we have a lot of competitors to give the tourism, international tourism come to our own country. In the world, the economic world is not stable from the COVID and war. For the COVID and war and conflict of anarchy in the country. Russia and Ukraine and NATO conflict and affect to the petroleum oil price and moneyless exchange, and so that the high living in the many countries. In Thailand now we are the price of petroleum oil increased to from 77 baht per liter to now in the 36 baht for the diesel oil. And if affect to the product price is so higher. Now the new normal tourism after pandemic, the tourists, the people change behavior to be the new normal. People need clean and centrally tourism and safety tourism. Technology disrupt. The travel has a lot of innovation and technology now is disrupt in everything, so that the tourists or the traveler we have a lot of choice to go away. We can choose in the smartphone, choose in the social media what is the best thing. Low, cheaper, better, and faster, cheaper, faster, and safety, so that the market of tourism is easy to choose. This next. Thailand government have a policy for the regency of the economic again. We have we run a lot of project and policy to invite the tourism and promote the tourism. For the example, in the first, we have a campaign for Restart Thailand again. We promote advertising in the social media, in the something like that to the promote. Now Thailand is open and welcome the tourists from another country, from the foreigner country. Tourism business match. We have the project for tourism business matching. After pandemic, the tourists entrepreneurs must have a lot of money to invest, so that the government have activity to matching about the bank and entrepreneur to meet and during due to the business tourism again. The Amazing Thailand Safety the Thai government have a policy to protect and trust for the come to visit Thailand by we have the standard of health and assistance we call CHA certificate. CHA certificate give to the tourist place like a restaurant, hotel, tourism place to have the certificates of CHA for make a task to the tourism to tourists. We have the campaign Tour Thailand promote Thailand people to visit to tourists into a tour in Thailand, not go another country. We got and we had a project campaign of the invite international tourism by Phuket Sandbox. After the pandemic, second wave is recare. Thailand try to test about the international tourists. We focus on the Phuket because Phuket Iceland is the famous in the international country. We have a Phuket policy for Phuket Sandbox and keep the some invite some foreigner tourism come to Phuket and test. We can control COVID. We can control COVID or not. And it's Phuket Sandbox is a very success. So that after we wider to another area like Pattaya, like Chiang Mai, right? In the Bangkok Sandbox, Pattaya Sandbox, Chiang Mai Sandbox for welcome international country. So international tourists. We have policy Thailand Pass. Thailand Pass is it means that before in the COVID pandemic, difficult to come to Thailand, but now easy. You just only show COVID certificate. You can go anywhere in Thailand now, and we promote to the discount, the price of hotel, price of the tourism address for invite, so that I can say that now Thailand ready to welcome to the foreigner country come to Thailand. We have many things to take care of the foreigner tourists, like safety and clean. And now the foreigner tourists can receive the free vaccine for the tourist, for the foreigner in Thailand. This time, the situation after Thailand rehab policy and open country. The number of international travel in February 2020 in this year from Europe around 62%, East Asia around 16%, and Oceania 3%, South Asia around 4%, and Africa not many. Africa because we have still some disease from Africa and Middle East and America. So that you can see now in Europe is the first of the tourists come to Thailand. But now we waiting the Chinese tourism, but not have the number of Chinese come to Thailand now. This next. The number of international tourists come to Thailand under the last COVID from the India among 100,000 people come to Thailand, and they go to Bangkok, Pattaya, Chiang Mai. So the lots of the India tourism come to Thailand for what for the wedding, for the family tour, family vacation. From England allow 9,000 people, and from Germany most of the Europe tourists come to the Phuket sandbox business. How to research the tourism business? We have to start for the SHA certificate guarantee. The campaign Come Back to Thailand, the innovation and technology media to promote Thai tourism business. This is a Phuket sandbox. The Phuket sandbox is the government attempt to promote the domestic travel, but the result cannot reach the goal. Therefore, the government formulates the sandbox policy at the Phuket as Phuket Sandbox in July 2020. The Phuket Sandbox aims to increase the number of international travel. The requirements for international travel in the integrative outlet fully vaccinated travel between 4 days and 1 year before their travel data. After the international travel area, there must exemption for the quarantine provide the remain in Phuket for at least 14 years before travel after pass of Thailand. The travel will restrict to accommodation in Phuket only, and the accommodation has been certificated by Safety and Health Administration for the Thai government. Moreover, traveler must stay in Phuket at least 14 days. The government does not allow to the travel to visit other city. There is business again. And for new normal for the tourism, we have many policy for the innovation to aware for the new normal, like booking online, environmental and safety and technology, tourism experience, business. Innovation technology can help to the promote tourism in the main media. In the last media for the promoting tourism, we like to have the billboard and magazine, TV guides, advertisement, and website. But now, until now, the technology disrupt for the media. We have the many channel for the promote. For example, business is a billboard in the, but the problem of billboard, you must to come to see, you must to open, and you must to business. So that now, I think the people like to tourist by the easy to know, easy to go, and easy to look for searching. So the social media can come to be the important for the promote tourism, like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, or the Instagram. So that if you have only one smartphone, you can go anywhere. You can take a photo and you can have a content and you can promote. And Thailand government support to the new generation to go anywhere and promote the TikTok from YouTube or something like that. And a lot of people in the world can know Thailand by the social media. It's next. In Thailand, social media. Business. This is the number of website in the Thailand. This for the YouTube to promote tourism in Thailand, like the beach or dam. Business. Facebook YouTube, and the advertising. This is the, you know, Millie is the superstar in Thailand, in the lab superstar. Just only 17 years old, but she go to join in the in the Shokela concert in America, and we have and have the follow more than 1 million people follow her. So this my presentation. I would like to show you that I think after pandemic, if you don't pandemic from the COVID have effect to many sectors like the social, politics, education, business, and something and the healthy. But after pandemic, a lot of countries must be come back to the improve and develop on the economic again. And I think the tourism is the best thing. It the best. It the quickly to get the money from to be the regency economic of country economic, and how we can invite the tourists, international tourists come to our country. And I think innovation and technology can help we to promote and give information to the people of to the tourists or travelers to come to our country. But we can give we can guarantee about the safety and clean to the travel. Innovation can help, right? You can register by the mobile or platform tourism, and in the future step, the Thai government plan to launch a long-term resident program for attracting foreigners. The project is called New Long-Term Resident Visa, up to 10 years, tax and investment incentive, foreigner resident property ownership relaxation, and so on. The aim of this program are the first, the wealthy global citizen; the second, the wealthy retiree; and the third, the work from Thailand professional; and the last, the high-skilled professional. The government expect for welcome and over 1 million and increase domestic spending in the next 5 years. That start from 2020. So that now in Thailand, the foreign can buy and property, and you can read the owner the land. If you have would like to have you have a specification in the tab. So that, thank you so much for my presentation.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation, Professor Assistant Dr. Anurat Anantanatron. It is a great knowledge for us as the issue are still currently happening nowadays. Before we go on to the next section, I would like to conclude some of the pointers of your materials that I can conclude as many countries in the world, like Thailand also, got a harsh impact on the pandemic, the decrease of the economic, especially on the tourism sectors, because it linked with the hotel, entertainment, restaurant, and etc. Therefore, the government formulated several policies such as vaccination program, sandbox policy, long-term residence program, and try to use media to promote campaigns of come back to Thailand again by using a lot of media instruments such as billboard. It is a very nice charts and picture that I see in your PPT. So we have billboard, YouTube nowadays, and TikTok, television channels, and then magazines and television and etc. A lot of Facebook, a lot of media to attract a lot of people to come back to Thailand. And the government give a policy of safety and free access to Thailand. So it's going to be easier for a lot of people to come back to Thailand. It's a very nice and interesting presentation, Professor. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the question and answer session. I would like to, before that, I would like to say apologies that we may only could ask, in this virtual event to Professor Dr. Anurat Anantanaton, as Professor Bambang Yulianto need to leave earlier. So if you have questions for Professor Bambang Yulianto, you may put it in a chat box, and then we would like to answer that through an email. But now I have some of the questions in the chat box, but before that, I would like to invite you, all of the participants, to unmute the microphone and ask directly to our presenter today. Could I have 2 persons for the first session, please? Before I go on to the chat box, I'm going to invite a live session first. You may unmute the microphone and ask the questions to Professor Anurat. Anything related with the issues of economics, technology in a pandemic era. Yes, please. Okay, I think you're quite shy, so let's just move on to the chat box. Yes, Professor Anurat, we have the first question from Awang. So Thai government plan to launch a long-term residence program for attracting foreigners. It then may impact a good result as many people come and stay in Thailand, but it also bring competition or bad impacts for the native and the foreigners. How the government will solve this kind of problem? So, sorry, I cannot hear your voice. I think you need to unmute. Yes, thank you.
Can you show the question in the? I would like to.
In the chat box, could the committee perhaps help me to present the question, please? So, Professor, could you see in the chat box?
I cannot see in the chat box. For this question, can I answer by the chat box? I will check again because I use I use iPad. Maybe I can see. I will answer this question in the chat box to the Mr. Wang.
Okay. All right.
Sorry for Mr. Wang.
Okay. Could we move to the next question? I'm going to make it simple one. Professor, could you tell us about the Phuket sandbox policy?
If you please, I will give you my email. If someone to have a question, you can send to my email. Because my email is Anurat ANU.
Yes.
ANURAT.
ANUID.
ANURAT.
Okay.
ANURAT GO.
Okay.
.buu. .buu. .ac.th. .ac.th. Thailand. TH.
Okay. TH. Okay.
Okay. So
All
that
right.
if someone have a question, please you send to my email. I will answer by mail. It's okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All
Sorry
right,
for the.
It's okay. I'm actually having 3 to 4 questions in the chat box, so we will send it to your email. However, I still invite some of the participants perhaps to ask one more questions live.
I would like. Sorry, do you hear me?
Yes, you can hear
I
me.
have a
Please,
question. I was intrigued by a talk, and I'm just talking from Europe. I was wondering how important advertisement is. I miss this aspect. So I mean, you talked about social media, but I think how you can attract tourists is also that you have to be somehow competitive in advertising your country as such. And I just want to know, what are the activities in this direction?
You can answer, and I don't just want to know what are the activity. You mean activity?
Advertisement, so that basically you can advertise your country for so to basically to push forward basically to to make your country attractive as much as possible for tourists. So the question, and what you usually do then is, there's a lot of competition between different countries where people go, and the decision making, where do I go on vacation, is
Okay.
what,
Thank you.
where do you see it? And so there can be, I think, a lot of momentum can be gained if you are smarter than other countries, maybe.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, in Thailand, if you see my decision, you can see the Thai people have used a lot. Many Thai people use the social media like Facebook. The number, in Facebook, Thailand is in the top 10 the user of Facebook in the world. And Twitter, I think maybe top 5. So that now the Thai young generation, when we have something they like to have a content and push it in the Twitter and so that when the international tourists come to Thailand, the tourist press and tourist entrepreneur have the question, what is about me? And so that I know from we can check by the follower and check by the question when the foreigner come to Thailand. Why Thailand, or via YouTube, via TikTok. So that effective, I think maybe we can check from the social media together. Thank you. And Thailand, we have we have a policy to drive Thailand to the innovation country. And the government have policy to smart Thailand, smart city, and smart innovation in Thailand. So that I think maybe in Thailand now, every Thailand know about the technology and can active to buy themselves. And the social media, I think social media is the good for the advertising, cheaper and around the world. And you can advertising everywhere, everything, every time in the social media. So it's easy to promotion. Thank you so much. I don't know, are you understand my answer?
I understand your answer perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Maybe
Yeah,
I would like to.
Is it clear enough?
Maybe I would like to invite you come to Thailand, Mr. Professor.
Sure. Anytime.
Thank you.
Nice. It's gonna be nice traveling there in Thailand. Thank you very much, Professor Anurat Anantanton. Sorry, It's quite a bit difficult to pronounce your name, the last name especially. I'm so sorry. And thank you for all the viewers, participants, and everyone that joined with us today. Because some of the questions in the chat box will be sent to the email, then we would like to close this first plenary session 1 before we have a break and then move to the second plenary session. And now I would like to give the floor and the times to the Master of Ceremony, Pak Sued. Time is yours. Thank you.
Plenary sessions, I'd like to say thank you very much for the presentations from Dr. Anurat and also Professor Bambang Yulianto talking about some emerging issues, especially post-pandemic. Hopefully that, we are now facing the new normal or the post-pandemic era in the corner. So hopefully all aspects and sectors in our national sectors, including tourism in Thailand, hopefully is getting better. It's going to give a positive impact to the community. Thank you very much, Doctor, for sharing the conditions in Thailand and hopefully
being used for other things, need to focus on the vaccines. It's very good for big countries or European countries who got a lot of money, but for the third world countries or second world countries, this might have a problem where they have a tighter budget to buy the vaccines. We know that, and the WHO, I think they have a special programs to have those affected country, third world country, being affected by giving the free vaccines. However, I think it's quite late and a lot of people have been affected. But now we can see the world already, get back to this problem. The second one, of course, during the pandemic era, the country, we need the respiratory support. So we have the problem of the supplement of the oxygens. We have the problem with the mechanical ventilation. So these are the things that the governments are mostly focusing, especially in my country, Malaysia. We are focusing on providing these problems. I've seen the problems in India. At one time, they have problems in oxygen supply and also the mechanical ventilation. And also they need to have like these ICU beds. ICU beds is very important. All right, in Malaysia now, the country is also, even though the rate of the affected by the COVID-19 is not that high, but still the ICU bed is occupied quite the higher rates compared than previously. But now we not so much worries as we have already the vaccine already work out to us now. Okay, so we are our friends, my colleagues previously talking about the tourism industry. It also been affected. We closed the border. We have the employment issues, especially for the pilots, for any of the tourism related industry. So the next thing, what we have is education's industry, where we have the university. We know that university and the school closed. They are not really closed visually, only the physically closed. But the class are being held online. We know that, right? So what's the problems? The problems if the students need the laptops or PCs. You just imagine in Malaysia, especially, a lot of students are lag behind of this because of not every families do have laptops or PCs, or maybe they shared with the parents, because the parents also doing it online. You just imagine the parents are doing it online, the students, the kids also, you need the laptops. We short of the supplies of this laptops of PCs, and also the internet connections. The internet connection also a main issues especially in Malaysia, where in rural area the connection is quite bad. There are some people or some students need to go outside of the place, rural area, just in order to get a connection. You just imagine the class we held 8 to 5 or 8 to a week, 3 classes or 4 classes a week. They need to go out to get the connections, stably connections. So these are the issues that are mainly concerns by us previously. And in food industry, of course, the food industry also being affected. The closed factory because of the curfew. The students, the workers are not be able to work in the factory. So of course we have the issues on the food industry, and of course the employment rise because of these kind of things. So there are three kinds of problems we can see from the COVID. The first one is going to be health. The second one, of course, the internet connections. And the three is the food security. You can see these three things, these three keywords are the main things during our sessions during the pandemic era. Okay, I'm going to go to the next. What are the next one? The next one is going to be the war between Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. Okay. How war in Ukraine is going to affect the other countries as well. So, as you know, the suffering of ordinary men, women, and children in Ukraine, among them is 11 million displaced people. Okay, so the impacts will flow to 3 main channels. All right, the first one, of course, the higher price of commodities like food, energy will push inflation further, and it will, of course, the price will higher, and because the power to buy will be reduced by the people. The second one, the neighboring economies in particular will grapple with dispute trade, supply chains, and as well as refugee flows between these. So as you know that previously Ukraine supplying the wheat, and it's the same as Russia. Russia have supplying the gas, the oil, and you can see the fluctuation in the price of these things. And the reduction is business confidence, because the investor are of course are going not to invest into that countries, and it, of course it going to affect the economy of the countries. All right, so Russia and Ukraine are major commodities producers, and disruptions have caused a global price to soar, especially for oil, natural gas, and the food costs have jumped, especially wheat, which the Ukraine make up 30% of the global exports, to reach the record. As you can see, the three keywords, I repeat, three keywords are important in these problems. The oil, or the source of energy, the natural gas, the same things, and the food security, again, the same as the previous one. These are the three keywords that we define. So, what are the things? These are the price market I'm taking from the IMF, right? The crude oil, you can see the spike occurred during in 2022. We can see how the price per barrel increased more than 120 USD, right, per barrel. So it's going the same to go for the gases. For the gas is about 2022. All right. For the gas, actually, it's been used to warm, been used many of the European house, especially during the winter. In Asia, we didn't use the gas, but in European, we did use it. All right. And the corn or wheat, you can see the price is higher there. And 2022 is going to be higher again. And the metal also will be price rise again. These are the things, the war has been caused us a chaos to many countries. All right, so these are the things, the same things I said. The food trade disruption. The biggest risk is a possible disruption to the production of the transportation of grains and seeds from Russia and Ukraine. Alongside the high price, this could be increased hunger and food insecurity in lower income countries. These are the things that I said previously. Whenever happens to the war, it's going to mostly affected by the low income countries, because the low income countries is dependent much on the wheat, on the food, on the oil. And if we are not the most exporters of these things, so we will see the high price. In Malaysia, luckily we are the most of the exporters for the oil, but we see lately the increment of the price of the bread lately, because they use the wheat from imported from outside. So you can see how this is going to affect the countries. All right, you can see also how the Russia and the Ukraine itself. You can see on the yellow and the red things, the red graph. You see how they export to the world, how these things going to affect the world, especially the seed oil about 40%, the corn about 13%, and the rest is the natural gas and etc. All right, so the conclusion is more people around the world will go hungry as a result of pandemic. Not only pandemic, but the addition of the conflict in Ukraine. Even before the pandemic, the estimated that 960 million people are facing food insecurity. This is bad that before the pandemic, but after the pandemic and after the war, it's become worse. And as you can see, the tense between, it's not a war, but they say that rumors, if the war between China and Taiwan happens, it become worse. But I believe I hope that it's not going to be happen, because we might have a short supply, especially in its semiconductor and other sectors, because we know Taiwan are the manufacturer of most of the semiconductor in the world. So if the tensions between China and Taiwan become higher, and then it's going to be dangerous for us as well. All right. We have two kind of problems previously: the pandemic, and of course the other one is going to be the war between the Ukraine and Russia. But now, to make it worse, we have this climate change. What is the kind of climate change? I think climate change is quite common to everyone, because climate change is before the pandemic, before the war. This is what we are facing previously. As if you heard about the global warming previously, right? Global warming is what have been affected by us. Okay, global warming refers to the global temperatures due to mainly to the increasing of concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Climate change refers to the increasing change in the measures climate change over long period of time, including temperature, wind patterns, and precipitations. So this is what going to be happen. So impact on crops. What is impact on crops? The first one, the higher CO2 level can affect crops yields. So some laboratory experiments suggest that the CO2 level can increase the plant growth. However, other factors such as changing temperature, ozone, and water may counteract this potential increase in yield. More extreme temperature and precipitation can prevent crops from growing. Extreme events, especially food and droughts, can harm crops and reduce yields. You can see that these are the things that affect on the crops. All right, dealing with the drought can become challenging in the areas where the rising summer temperature can soils to become drier. All right. Next, the CO2 can stimulate the plant growth. It also reduces the natural of value of most crops. Right, rising the levels of atmospheric carbon dioxide reduce the concentration of the protein, and it is the most being used by in wheat, soybeans, and rice. All right, so what is impact on livestock? All right, it will project to increase under climate change and could directly threaten the livestock. And drought may be threatened, of course, because we don't have enough water to them to supply that. And climate change may increase the prevalence of parasites and disease that affect the livestock. Again, we have the cow problem, the cow, and etc. Okay, impact on the fisheries. We have the high water temperatures, the problem with high temperature, and the last, as you can see, right, the problems with the flood in the latest one is going to be in Pakistan. So Pakistan is drowning now. So you can see these are the impacts, how the worst kind of happens to the low-income countries. So what is going to happen to the countries like dependent on especially on the agriculture? So these are the things that have the problems. So I think in my country, in Malaysia now, we realize that lately the flood are happening not into the pattern. Usually we have some months every heavy rain in certain months, for example, during October to December, right? But now we happening it should be not heavy rain right now. Especially in January to March. But we realize it happens every month now. Mostly every month we have the floods problems. It might be caused by several human errors, not building enough facilities. But the most problem is the rain, the number of accumulated rains is heavily caused the flood. So this is also happened in now. We can see in Pakistan that we need help. So I think that the thing that happened in around the world. So This when this happens, of course, the food supply might have the main problems. All right. So where are our new research direction going to be heading to? So we as researchers, we should find these problems. We should find the solutions to save these worlds. So, all right, the pandemic is, we know, the vaccine for the new disease. These are where the most of the countries are going to start to do research, to supply the grants to the researchers in order to get to solve of the future problems. We know that the COVID-19 is almost in the end, but we know the problems are not at the end yet, as maybe they have a new kind of COVID-19 will be appear in future. We're not sure. You know that nowadays, lately in China, they have some of the curfew. They have the new problem with the COVID-19. They attack the countries. They need to have some things to solve the problems. So there are some countries who are still struggling because of the pandemic as well. So we can do the wireless health monitoring system. You know, when we have when first we have the COVID-19, it's not going to be that first, but we'll see the wireless health monitoring system is very important because there is no physical assistance for doing that. So there might be a topic that you can go on. So the war Ukraine-Russia, of course, the food security is the most important thing. So of course, the drone, artificial intelligence come to the rescue of this. You can see the food security is now very essential to solve the problems that we have now. And the second one, of course, the renewable energy. As the people, we know there's also the climate change problems lately. We have the charcoal produces CO2 and everything. So we need the renewable energy that free from that can save the world. And that's going to be the climate change, of course, the food security and the green technology. As you can see here, right, most of these pandemics, war, Ukraine, climate change cause these simple things. They have the food security. That are the main things that they need to be solved, right? All right. Education, of course, the speed of connections. Okay, so of course the UN already been addressing this by implementing the Sustainable Development Goal SDG 17. They got 17 goals to have this, and they got a lot of 70s there. But what I'm going to emphasize is we have the no poverty, the zero hunger, which is what we need to take actions and to really focus on for ours. So in our part, right? In our part, what we are producing is focusing on the now on the agriculture, which effect is to solve the food security problems. All right, this is going to be the next interesting thing in the future, the artificial intelligence in agriculture. Of course, when you say about the artificial intelligence, it requires image, high image. In agriculture, you have the small plants, you have the bigger plants. You need to do the mappings. You need to find the small insects or whatever is the problems. So it needs really the very precision image. So in order to do that, you need to have because the artificial intelligence can be detect the images. So can it tell people, can tell to the human that, all right, this is going to be the problems. We can find, we detect the disease of the plants and etc. So in order to do that, we need to have the very quality of videos. Of course, we need a higher connection internet speeds and very low latency. These are the things that we are going to address it. All right, so now what we have, this is how the drone working on paddy fields. They're going to mapping it. These are the examples of doing it. All right, these are the things that the artificial intelligence in the agriculture, the crop yield predictions, the intelligence spraying, what we are doing now, predictive of insights, right time to sow the seeds to maximum productivity, agriculture robots, using the autonomous robots for harvesting for huge volume of crops at higher volumes and faster pace, crop and soil monitoring, and disease diagnosis. So they are the things that the artificial intelligence can do. So about the higher connections, higher speed connections, we have, in order to increase the speed connections, we need to have to increase the channel capacities. There are three kind of things to increase the speeds of the internet. The first one will be the modulation order. The second one will be the transmission bandwidth. The third one going to be the spatial multiplexing order. All right, I spoke to you previously about this. In order to make function of this artificial intelligence effectively, you need to get the higher connections. The same goes to UAV connection, for our examples. Imagine if we have a very high latency. Latency, it means that when you send the signals, they got delayed. So imagine if you want to drive a car, if you can see the traffic lights turns to red, and then so sudden, because of the high latency, it means that the delay to give the signals to the drone or to your car, it will cause the accidents because the delays is important. So that's called latency. So low latency means that the delay reduce. So in order to get the low latency, you need to get the higher connections. How to get the higher connections? You need to get a higher efficiency bandwidth, higher channel capacity. So these are the three things that increase the channel capacity: modulation order, transmission bandwidth. We're not talking here. Transmission bandwidth is mean that if you're working in a lower frequency, you get the lower bandwidth, but you can penetrate it. For example, if you are, why the 5G are working on, we know the 5Gs, most of frequencies are working on the high frequencies, but because of the high, when you have the high frequency, the problem with the high frequencies is they cannot penetrate the buildings. They are prone to the rain. You cannot penetrate the rain, so you have the problem with the signals if you cannot penetrate the building. So they make it lower frequency, which means they are going to compensate between the high speed and the penetration in order to do that. So, but we are talking about it here. We are talking the other method, is spatial multiplexing order. All right, what is the spectrum? Through the single antenna. We mean that we have the single antenna, you can have more signals there. It means that if you have more modes there, we can have more signals. It can increase the channel capacity, and you can get the higher speed internet. So these are the introduction of the orbital angular momentum multiplexing. All right, this is going to be the last part of my slides. So these are going to be the novels, the future of the communication. The orderability of signals. For example, I can say that I've got one end, but one end can submit 3 or 4 signals simultaneously, synchronously. It means that you can get very low latency, because each of these signals will orthogonal to each other, will not interfere to each other. So these are the very important things about OEM multiplexing. So we will have the high channel capacity for low latency and high internet connection. So in my research for the future, I'm going to combine the artificial intelligence by using the drone in the agriculture with this OEM. So we believe that these combinations will of course will have the food security in the future. Thank you very much. I think that's all for talk for today. It's already reached 30 minutes, and thank you very much to the audience. And I leave it to the moderator now. Thank you.
One, how the politic and natural factors or problems can influence the world economic crisis such as pandemic, the Ukraine-Russia war, and climate change. The second one, these phenomena affect the wide spectrum of our society, from the welfare of the people, the economy, education, tourism industry, until the country's stability. This crisis also actually trigger everyone to become more aware of the importance of the research and innovation in many fields. It also motivates several countries to improve more in the research and innovation field, not only to help to solve problem in their own country, but also to contribute to solve the world's problem. And the last will be artificial intelligence can be applied in many fields, including agriculture, in which the facility to develop and apply it need to be built to support the use of AI and its research. Yes, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, now we will move on to our next keynote speaker. Now I would like to invite our second keynote speaker of this session, Dr. Heinz Jacobs. He is a group leader in Tumor Biology and Immunology Department, NKI-FAL, the Netherlands Cancer Institute, Amsterdam, the Netherlands. He also the head of Tumor Biology and Immunology Department, part of the NKI Research Council and several committees at the NKI. He obtained his bachelor degree in biomedical science, especially in human biology, immunology, biochemistry, and cell biology in the University of Marburg, Germany. Then he obtained his master's degree after completing master thesis with the title Molecular and Biochemical Characterization of the Feline MHC under supervision of Professor Guido Ploeg at the Netherlands Cancer Institute, Amsterdam, the Netherlands. And then he received his PhD degree from the University of Amsterdam, where he studied the T-cell development in TCR mutant mice in the laboratory of Anton Burns. The main focus of his research groups are in the research of lymphocytes and function, especially in fundamental research on B and T lymphocytes, and identify potential targets for cancer therapy, including lymphoma. And today, he will talk about the DNA damage tolerant in physiology and cancer therapy. I would like to invite the distinguished speaker to the main room. Yes. Good morning, Dr. Heinz Jacobs.
Hello. Do you see my slides?
Yes, maybe. Yes. Okay. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yes, thank you for accepting our invitation and being with us today. So without further ado, allow me to welcome Dr. Heinz Jacobs. Dr. Heinz, the time and room are yours.
Hello, thank you, Pipet, for this nice introduction, and the organizers for allowing me to, to contribute to your nice conference and very interesting. We have heard a lot about the ongoing war in the world, and today I will focus on another war that is basically not related on the world, but it's basically taking place in our cell every day, and that is related to DNA damage. And I'm working in the Cancer Institute, and we try to combat cancer by any means. And so understanding DNA damage, which is a key related to cancer development, we want to understand the role of DNA damage tolerance, which I come later to, in not just physiology, what is the relevance of DNA damage tolerance, but also in cancer therapy. So as you know, we inherit, each of us, from mother and father 3 billion base pairs of genetic information. So 6 billion base pairs have then to be maintained and replicated throughout life and replicated prior to cell proliferation. And there are a lot of exogenous and endogenous stressors that can basically damage our DNA. And that is basically the big war that goes inside our genome. There's a whole battery of repair pathways that then can repair actually all these insults. But besides repair, and the repair usually goes like this, if you have a lesion like here, intrastrand crosslink between two adjacent Gs, then normally you can excise this easily and takes the information of the opposing strand to resynthesize the newly strand and thereby repair your DNA. That's why we often have these excision repair pathways, where you simply excise on the one strand and use the template information of the other strand to resynthesize and correct the damage. Now, the DNA is melted when cells start to divide. And then you don't have this adjacent template in order to repair your DNA. So this faces a problem during replication. And the question is, how does a cell, if the DNA is melted, deal with this problem? And the solution to this problem relates to the fact that our system has evolved a fantastic system that allows DNA damage to tolerate, at least transiently, in our system. What is DNA damage tolerance? So like I said, DNA can be replicated, and we know this DNA is replicated semi-conservative. That means you have these two paternal strands, and they are melted, and then there is this so-called sliding clamp, a trimolecular complex, pCNA, a homotrimer, that is an important transcription factor that facilitates replication factor, that facilitates replication by tethering replicative polymerases to the template. So it encircles the DNA, and then the replicative polymerase synthesizes this new strand. That is all fine, and it is very efficient. But however, if there is a lesion, like a DNA damage here indicated with a red asterisk, we have a great problem for these replicative polymerases to continue DNA synthesis. And actually, if there's prolonged stalling of such a replication fork, we call it, that will result in a fork collapse and the DNA double strand breaks. And you have to envisage these DNA double strand breaks. That's what the cell wants to prevent by any means. And because these double strand breaks are highly recombinogenic and mutagenic and can lead to cancer development. So in order to prevent this to happen, we have specialized polymerases, so-called translesion synthesis polymerases, TLS polymerases. These are quite special DNA polymerases because they can accommodate these lesions in their catalytic center. And as you see here, they can replicate across a lesion. And for today, the most important, what you have to remember is there are two key pathways that enable these TLS polymerases to replicate across such lesions. And the first one is mediated by a damage inducible. So the damage induces ubiquitination, that is a post-translational modification of the pCNA sliding clamp with ubiquitin. And that is a site-specific process, which is here indicated by a K164, that is a lysine residue, that is site-specifically ubiquitinated. And this ubiquitination event facilitates basically the swapping from a replicative polymerase to a translesion synthesis polymerase. So in this way, the stressor can be basically transiently tolerated, and this is followed by repair, because now you have a template strand. Now there's an alternative mechanism that is independent of this ubiquitination event, and that relies on Ref1. That is also a TLS polymerase. It's a funny polymerase because it can only introduce DCMP nucleotides, but it can also recruit TLS polymerases. So it's an alternative mechanism independent of PCA ubiquitination that can replicate across such lesions and thereby alleviate replication stress such as also the PCA-UB dependent pathway does, and thereby prevent prolonged stalling and forks collapse. So today I want to divide my talk in two subjects. I first want to share with you give you a general introduction into what we know and what we have learned about the relevance of DNA damage tolerance in normal physiology. And the other one, the second part, will focus on medical implications, and that is particular focus on so-called interstrand crosslinks, which I will come later to, which are used into effectively and broadly in the world, and it's a very cheap drug, and we have to know when the drug works and why not, and that will be the second part of my talk. So if we want to study DNA damage tolerance, the way I do it, normally I want to have both in vitro and in vivo relevance. And in order to accomplish this, I started early on in my career with generating engineered mouse models. And in order to study now the relevance of DDT as a general for us human beings and mammals in general, we introduced a site-specific mutation in PCNA, a K164R mutation, so a lysine to arginine mutation at residue 164, which is known to prevent, which we also showed, any ubiquitination of PCNA. And then you can imagine if I cannot ubiquitinate PCNA anymore, the polymerase switching doesn't take place, and in this way you actively inhibit PCN ubiquitination-dependent DNA damage tolerance. In order to inactivate the second pathway, we deleted the Ref1 allele, so we generated what we call a Ref1 knockout mouse. And so we have now finally generated two independent mouse models which we can cross, and then we can study the relevance of these two pathways for the mammalian system. And by intercrossing these strains, I can tell you we never obtained the double mutants. So telling us that DNA damage tolerance as such is essential for mammalian life. And then we ask the question, of course, if the mice are never born, how far does the embryo develop and when do they die? So we could actually obtain embryos just before they get born, and normally they get born around day 21, depending on the strain. And here, as we see at embryonal day 18 and a half, we see smaller mice, but what we observed was that these mice develop a lethal anemia. And that's what you see here in the red blood cell counts, as well as at the hemoglobin content of the red blood cells. So indicating that something might be wrong either with the erythropoiesis or with hematopoiesis early on in the stem cell compartment. So, and this anemia was what you see here. These are normal erythrocytes, but what you see here already is these male-formed erythrocytes, which are all kinds of donut shape and holy body structures in these erythrocytes really indicated to a severe anemia. And in order to know now whether this is a stem cell defect in the bone marrow, because you can imagine we have only a few hematopoietic stem cells in the bone marrow, and that have to divide in order to make all our blood cells. So of course that requires replication, DNA replication, and that is associated in this mouse with replication stress. So we had a look at the bone marrow compartment using specific markers that allow us, surface markers that allow us in the bone marrow to look, for instance, at these so-called LSK cells. It's not so important what the LSK is, but you can just remember these contains the earliest stem and progenitor cells of our body to make blood cells. And then we have these so-called progenitor cells, which are precursors of other blood cells. And what you see in the double mutant here, that we have a strong reduction of these blood producers. And that is remarkable, and it tells us basically that stem cells, specifically hematopoietic stem cells and progenitor cells, apparently heavily depend on these two DNA damage tolerance pathways. And as expected and observed, what we see actually that these remaining LSK cells, if we stain them for a marker which we know as a phosphorylated gamma H2X, that is gamma H2X staining detects replication stress and DNA damage. And what you see is that the double mutant again accumulate a lot of damage. So most of the remaining cells actually have DNA damage. So apart from this embryonic lethality, we were thinking, okay, we cannot study the mouse is never born. So then, but we can, from these embryos, from the 18.5-day embryos or 14.5 embryos, we can isolate mouse embryo fibroblasts or pre-B cells cultures and try to culture those ones. And what you see here again is, and now in green, the double mutant never grew out, whereas this is an incucite assay where you measure the confluency of cells, whereas the wild type, the single mutants, are growing nicely, the double mutants do not grow. And the interesting aspect, so in order to enable now a study of the double mutants, we thought, okay, let's take out a signaling molecule, TP53, which is important transcription factor that is important to mediate DNA damage signals. It's also known as the guardian of the genome. If we take this guardian out, then suddenly we see that all these MEFs and also other primary cells can be rescued in their proliferation. And that enables us to study at least the impact of a DDT defect and a TP53 deficiency in the system. So to summarize the relevance of DDT in physiology for the DDT system, so what I showed you so far is that a combined DDT effect where we miss both PCNA ubiquitin dependent as well as REF dependent DDT is embryonic lethal, and the lethality is due to a severe hematopoietic stem cell failure that finally leads to a lethal anemia. Furthermore, there is a synthetic lethal interaction between the two pathways. It's basically you can stand on one foot or on this, but if you take both of these foots away, then basically the system fails. So mammalian cells heavily depend on DDT, and so there's a failure to establish double mutant primary cell cultures, which shows basically that we depend on this, and this failure can be rescued actually by a TP53 knockout. And that rescue actually allowed us now to look at an independent aspect of DDT, and that is what is actually the consequence if we have a system now in culture like this knockout cells, which either are proficient like wild type or deficient, the double mutant, in DNA damage tolerance. And here we've made use of a spontaneous growing lymphoma from this mouse model. And from this mouse model, we could generate isogenic clones. Isogenic means that it has the same founder, but this founder has now either the wild type is basically DDT proficient or lacks both of these pathways. And then we can analyze by whole genome sequencing after culturing the cells, for instance, for 5 months, or by UV exposure to introduce lesions, how does the genome change if cells are devoid of these two systems of DDT? So the experimental approach is relatively straightforward. You take these cell cultures, you culture them simply for 5 months, and then you isolate clone, what we call a child mutation to the genome. And actually, very interesting, what we saw is we didn't see subtle mutations, but if you look at deletions, so that means deletions are fragments that are basically missing in the genome, then you don't see a monomodal distribution, but you see trimodal distribution. We see kind of 3 peaks, and somehow the double mutants, so the DDT deficient system, have a selective increase of deletions, what we call peak 3 deletions or large deletions, which are in the range of 1 to 2.8 kilobases. So that is quite remarkable, and it fits to the situation that if you inhibit replication and you have replication for collapses, yet you start to make double-strand breaks, and these double-strand breaks are recombinogenic, and in this way we think that double mutants acquire more of these specific deletions. Now, is this EUV inducible? Yes, it is. So interestingly, if we expose these double mutant cells to UV, we see a selective increase of these so-called large peak 3 deletions. And that indicates that this is, like we expected, a damage-inducible event. So are these different peaks now, because these is not a monomodal distribution, a trimodal distribution, can we get a glimpse on whether these are generated by different mechanisms? And one way to look at it is to look at the break ends. So if you have a deletion, you have 2 ends. And if there is some microhomology, which we can characterize this microhomology. So for instance, for peak 2, we have, and for peak 1 and 3, what you see that the pattern of the microhomology is changing. And this changes in the different microhomology pattern suggests that the mechanism underlying the generation of these individual peaks is different. And of course, this is a mouse study, and we were wondering whether we can see similar pattern in human tumors. So I can tell you already that this peak 2 is something really specific for the mouse, which we don't see in humans. But of course, our interest is peak 3. And to study this, we took advantage of the publicly available database, which is from the Hartwig Medical Foundation. It's a foundation in the Netherlands that has the aim to sequence every tumor in the Dutch population from patients that had a metastasizing tumor. So here you see the whole tumors. So then we simply asked, okay, let's take the whole data set and look at the patients and ask the question whether we find patients that have selectively an increase in peak 3. What you see here already, this is randomly selected, so there's hardly, if you look at randomly at these patients, you hardly find these patients. But if you ask the computer system, hey, are there patients that somehow have an increase in peak 3? Yes, we do see this. So there are apparently tumors that drive on these or are initiated eventually on these peak 3 deletions. And of course, the take-home message is here that DDT is one way to favor these large deletions. And we are now in the process of investigating the mechanism of these deletions. And this brings me to my second part, and that is what I call the relevance of DDT in cancer therapy. So interstrand crosslinks and interstrand cross-linking agents like palatinums and mitomycin C are used widely to fight cancers. And often it's very efficient, patients respond quite remarkably, and some even get really tumor control. And then some don't respond at all and or develop resistance. And it's often for the clinicians not understood why that happens. And the key repair pathway that deals with such interstrand crosslink is the so-called Fanconi anemia pathway. And the Fanconi anemia pathway takes care of this interstrand crosslink. And if there are defects in this interstrand cross-linking repair mechanism, these patients that have germline mutations in these Fanconi genes, they develop Fanconi anemia, which is a very severe disease, which is life-threatening because of an early anemia, and normally it's basically fight and treated by a bone marrow transplantation. But these patients also suffer from an early tumor onset, and so we learn a lot about Fanconi anemia. But what is important about the Fanconi anemia pathway, it's a repair pathway, which I will tell you in a minute, that actually depends on DNA damage tolerance. And that's where we came into play. So why is the Fanconi anemia pathway related to DNA damage tolerance? Well, the Fanconi anemia pathway you can envisage as something as an initiator complex. These are all these proteins that sit in the so-called Fanconi core complex. And that is the core complex basically mediates the site-specific ubiquitination of Fanc2 and Fanc-I. And this is the so-called mediator complex, which then recruit so-called endonucleases that cleave basically this interstrand crosslink, which is a covalent link between the upper and the lower strand. So normally we don't have covalent linkers, this is just hydrogen bonds, but an interstrand crosslink is a covalent link between the two strands. It prevents replication and therefore is an enormous replication stress. So in order to release the stress, there are endonucleases which mediates this so-called unhooking of the interstrand crosslink. Now, and this unhooking now allows DDT to bypass a lesion. So that's where damage tolerance comes in. Now there's a long question whether this is now the REF1 dependent pathway or whether it's a PCA ubiquitination dependent pathway. So while we have shown in 2018 clearly that PCA ubiquitination pathway is an essential part and epistatic to Fanconi anemia repair, there was a recent paper in a year later in Cell that claims that REF1 is doing an important job in this pathway. So that's kind of dilemma, and well, having a long-standing interest and having these models in our hands, we said, let's do a direct comparison between the two, right? So we claim PCA ubiquitination, and they say, well, with a REF1 inhibitor, we can chemosensitize tumors to cisplatin therapy. Well, we say that we can also do if we prohibit PCA ubiquitination. So the question was, what's going on now? So the first thing what we did is a very simple assay, right? You take lymphomas. We have, of course, easily our isogenic lymphoma clones. We have a wild type. We have the K164R mutant, so the PCA-dependent pathway is knocked down. And then we have the REF1 knockout. And what you see is basically if you challenge these cells with cisplatin and increasing concentrations, what you see that actually the REF1 doesn't care mutant, whereas the PCA actually ubiquitination mutant is highly sensitive to cisplatin exposure. So questioning the relevance of REF1. Well, I can tell you we did also knockdowns and we get the same results, so in human cells. But what we also did, we used their inhibitor once more, and we did robotics. We did robotics using also titration of cisplatin and Ref1 inhibitors, but that the one that was published by the Cell paper by Zhao and Wojtacek. And what we couldn't replicate is any synergy or any important impact of the Ref1 inhibitor to cisplatin. So that is quite surprising. And if you, so what we favor now is, of course, the idea that this is not at all important pathway to sensitize tumors with a Ref1 inhibitor for cisplatin. Actually, one should, if at all, focus on specific defects which are related to cisplatin resistant. And we don't know the TLS polymerase that basically bypasses this lesion. That is a central question that came to us, and you can read this in a recent publication that was published this year in NAR. And so the remaining question is actually, so if it's not Ref1, what other polymerase, TLS polymerase, can do it? And there are a number of reasons why our focus went to Pol-kappa, which I don't have the time for today, but we looked at Pol-kappa. And so the question was simply, once you unhook the interstrand crosslink, what is the identity of this TLS polymerase that basically does this translesion synthesis step? And for this to answer, we did a Pol-kappa knockout. It's the same lymphoma cell line that I was talking to. It's again an isogenic clone. But then we also reconstituted it either with an empty vector or with a vector that has a Pol-kappa GFP fusion. And what you see is that whenever you lack Pol-kappa activity, so the knockout or the non-reconstituted cell line, they are sensitive, highly sensitive to cisplatin, whereas the reconstituted and the wild type are not. So that indicates in vitro that Pol-kappa is actually the essential TLS polymerases dealing with cisplatin lesions. And one should look at tumors actually that are deficient in Pol-kappa or deficient in some of these Fanconi anemia repair genes in order maybe to predict responsiveness to cisplatin, because this is a highly toxic treatment, and we could predict for those patients actually which will respond and make better response predictions. So that was the in vitro results. But of course, we did also challenge mice with these lymphomas, which grow aggressively, as you can see here. And we treated these cells over the whole period. And as you can see, the Pol-kappa proficient tumors all killed the mice within a couple of weeks, 2 weeks. But the Pol-kappa deficient tumor, we could control over a long time, 50 days. And only if we stop the treatment, then the mice come down. So, but we can always reinitiate the treatment, and then we can control actually very efficiently with a single drug, so a monotherapy, these tumors. And that has implications for precision cancer medicine. Why? Because if you look at the TCGA database, which is a big, large database on human tumors, and you ask the question, are there tumors which have a homozygous or biallelic deletion of Pol-kappa? And what we see is actually that these metastatic prostate adenocarcinomas frequently in this database, at least 14%, nearly 14%, have a homozygous inactivating mutation of Pol-kappa. And that could be one reason, if I talk to the experts in our institute, why some patients suffering from prostate adenocarcinoma are so well responders. So I don't say that it's always Pol-kappa. It can be any Fanconi anemia gene, but I think it's a nice predictor to, and that has to be tested, of course, clinical, for to predict responsiveness in tumors. And I think it should be part of our analysis if we talk about precision cancer medicine and we get the information of the tumor, that we should also look at the status of Pol-kappa. So in summary, for the translational part, interstrand cross-link repair heavily depends on PCN ubiquitinated the directed DDT. So DDT is an essential part of this repair pathway. That is quite unique, actually. Not every pathway depends on DDT. Actually, that's, to my knowledge, the most essential one. Then PCN ubiquitination in our hands, but not the REF1 dependent DDT pathway, dictates the sensitivity to cross-linking agents. And then we have PCN ubiquitination recruits the TLS polymerase Pol kappa to tolerate unhooked cisplatin lesions, and the Pol kappa status in cancer provides, to our opinion, a nice avenue for personalized cancer medicine. And having said this, I like to acknowledge all my group members and other members of the Institute, and especially our funding agency, the Dutch Cancer Foundation, and NWO, which is a Netherlands organization for scientific research. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for a very insightful and very interesting presentation. And before we move to the next session, if I may, I would like to conclude some points from your presentation. So DNA that we own are inherited from our parents that can be damaged from that can be caused by endogenous and exogenous factor. And this damage is very dangerous and harm not only for ourselves, but also for our health. However, our cells have several sophisticated mechanisms that can repair this damage, including DDT tolerance pathway. And BCNA K164R, which part of the DDT pathway is essential in mammalian life, and it is embryonically lethal because when it's deleted, it's died due to severe anemia, DNA damage accumulation, and severe hematopoietic stem cell failure. So and then DDT is not only important during the embryonic phase, but also throughout our mammalian life, because this mechanism can help to prevent the large deletion that can occur, and also its vital role in the Fanconi anemia and its treatment. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now we arrive in the Q&A session. I would like to invite all the participants to ask directly to the speakers. Maybe someone already raised their hand to ask some questions to both Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Najib and also Dr. Hans Jacobs. Is there anyone? Yes, maybe they're a bit shy to raise their hand directly, but there are a lot of several questions that actually already appear in the chat box, and I will read them. Okay, the first one is a question for Dr. Muhammad Najib. The question is, with a lot of problems appeared during the pandemic, health, education, economics, do the university is invited to bring innovation and solution to help government to overcome the problems, and how? Maybe Dr. Najib, you may answer the question.
Yep. All right. I will issue these things. So, so especially university can facilitate to solve the problems by there are certain things. For example, for my city especially, they are offering grants, especially to solve the pandemic era at the time. So. We also, the Malaysian also have certain policies to solve these problems, such as have the agriculture policies, which they grant certain researchers to do research. We combine the agriculture in line with the IR 4.0, or another thing is with the artificial intelligence. So the So the university actually going to give not only the permissions, but also going to have the researchers in solving these problems. For example, the researchers, because we are researchers, we not only teach the students, giving the lectures to the students, but also we as a researcher, we are finding solutions. That's why the publication, the conference, the university make the conference addressing these issues. Not only that, we have also some of the talks by the experts, especially to focus solving what I said, the problem that I said previously. So actually, university play the important parts, not only the universities, but also the countries. In Malaysia, they have what we call the Ministry of Science that are giving grants, especially they're giving the special issues to the governments, to the researchers. Once. Okay, I hope that it solved answered the questions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, actually, the person who asked the question is in the same room with me, and he said yes. Okay, thank you. And we will move on to the next question for Dr. Najib. With the current conflict of Ukraine and Russia, and added with the climate change that disturb the food and oil distribution and production, how Malaysia and other countries solve these food and oil issues?
All right. When we call about this problem, the food securities, especially food securities, when the government need to play important role in solving these issues. So, as I said, mentioned previously, the Malaysians implement the agriculture policy, National Agri-Food Policy 2.0, which in line integrated the new technology, especially artificial intelligence, to the food security. This is important. So the first one, they're going to develop the agriculture input for all agri-food structure, making Malaysia a major world producer of tropical foods. It means that we are focusing now on the agriculture instead of other sectors. So the agriculture now are the main focus issues. We know the how the technology going to enhance the productions of the foods especially. So that's why the integration with the technology is very important and very essential for this. And also strengthening agriculture by technology and by giving grants to the researchers and open the subsidies to the farmers especially are going to have these issues. So research, as I said previously, has been a main focal point for the governments in order to improve, especially in food security. That's how we're doing that. And of course, as I said, mainly the researchers, especially in Malaysia, they need to change their paradigm. They need to change their topics. So they will focusing on these issues that I highlighted previously. Because if they are doing that, they can doing the research very well. But if they can switch it in order to solve the problems of the world, it could be great. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for the answer. Okay, and then we will move on to the next question that just arrived in the chat box from Mrs. Nani Setiawati. As a citizen in Malaysia, how can you help the government in combating COVID-19?
All right. Okay. As a citizen, there's a lot of things to do in combating the COVID-19. Have the governments. All right. The keywords that as a citizen. All right. The best thing is for as a citizen, whenever you've been caught by fever or you have coughing, it's best for you to isolate yourself instead of you are mixing with people. And as a lecturer, I prefer to do some online courses rather than physical classes. In university in Malaysia, most the university already open and they have the physical classes. But I prefer sometimes to have the online classes to accommodate those students who are being affected. Maybe they have got not only we have the problem with the in Malaysia now, we not only have the problem with the COVID-19, but we also have the problem with the influenza. So these things sometimes it's very difficult to differentiate between those because the symptoms are the same. They got fever, they got flu, and everything. But the most important thing is how we, as the educated, we need to make sure that we're not going to attend any ceremony or any classes or any physical assistance to any events. That's the most important thing. So this is how we're going to have to combating to reduce the COVID-19 infection. So if you can see, you should have at home, you should have the what we call it the test kit. And I know the test kit, the effectiveness is not very effective in 3 days, but at least you are prepared with everything in your house in order to combating the COVID-19. And also, you know that the world, as I said previously, the world, what we're having now, we're having the recession in the future. So the best thing as a citizen is you know where you need to get involved with this agriculture in order to secure food for your families. You need to get knowledge, not only to save your money to buy a new car, to get leisure things, to go holidays, everything, but you need to prepare yourself, your economy for your family, so that you can sustain in these hard few years incoming later. Thank you.
Thank you, Dato. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. So it answered the question, Mrs. Nani?
I think it's enough. But maybe national rational pertahanan keluarga, family relations is important. Maybe. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, then we will move on to the next question. Now is for Dr. Heinz Jacobs. The first one is from Mr. Doni Ardikusuma. He asks about cancer is associated with DNA instability due to increased damage to DNA. Exercise regularly with moderate intensity can protect against DNA damage due to higher antioxidant in exercise physiology. What do you think about exercise is one part of the cancer therapy based on the prevention and or curative action? Dr. Hein?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it's a very important one. I think there's a long history on what is important. So metabolism is has an impact on the formation of radicals, and also exercise is important. It's always a matter of balance. So we have to make sure that not too many stressors are generated in our bodies. So everything that can put this as a balance would protect our genome. So it's important that we keep in shape. That's true. And then the metabolism should not be as high as normally it is in Western world. So we can do a lot, and by preventing cancers simply by taking these measurements. I entirely agree. Is this answer the questions? Does this answer
Mr. Doni, is it answer the question? Okay, you say it yes. Okay, then we'll move on to the next question. During the pandemic of COVID-19, new variants appear over the time. Do you think it will impact to our DNA and create DNA damage tolerance?
Well, variants are always made, and actually the variants that are generated actually could well be related to DNA damage tolerance. But I think the vaccines that we develop are quite good. The problem is that, and this is the humanitarian disaster associated with it, that these are not broadly distributed throughout the world. And that is just a money-making machine, which is unfair, which is not human. And I would say the mutations that we hear and then see is they can have some impact on the immune system. But if we have already a vaccination against spike proteins like we do in general, then you basically cover already, or you generate already a strong immune system. And then at least I think you prevent with a boost or two boosts already a failure of your lung. And that is the most important thing. So I think we need to vaccinate the entire world, ideally, to minimize these catastrophic events where actually people have no experience or the immune system doesn't have any experience with COVID. And I think here that is our duty to make sure that people have access to these vaccines anywhere in the world, and no matter what religion, color, or income. And here I think is a big challenge in the world that we make sure, and that what comes later with a few mutations is not so important. I think we will be protected against many variants in the next years because we are vaccinated. And the variants, of course, have maybe a higher infectious potential, but what we have to prevent is basically this big clinical impact where people are simply dying because their lungs are disrupted by the virus, and that we have to prevent. So we have to lower the clinical symptoms, and that's what we can only do by protecting the population with effective vaccines, which we do have already and which should be distributed throughout the world.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And then we will move on to the next question. DNA mutation is one of the major causes of cancer. And it was mentioned before that the large deletion can be frequent in human cancer. As a healthy person, how high is the chance for us to get this kind of mutation that can cause us cancer?
Yeah, so the problem is actually we can live the healthiest lifestyle that we can think of. We never ever will prevent oncogenic mutations. It's simply because we have 6 billion base pairs that we have to maintain, and every division is associated with a few mutations, which the system, the DNA damage response network, cannot basically counteract. And so we cannot simply claim, hey, live a high, healthy lifestyle as we as a white population, stay away out of sun, and then you don't develop tumors. You can reduce the risk substantially by your lifestyle, but there's always, due to intrinsic oxidative and reactive oxygen species, there's always a risk to, and many other endogenous sources of DNA damage. And that is basically inherent to our life because the DNA is not stable, and because the DNA is vulnerable to chemical and insults. We cannot prevent cancer, but we can for sure reduce the risk.
Yes, thank you. Okay, then we will move on to the last question. Dr. Heinz, first of all, thank you. It was very interesting presentation. Oh, sorry. The question is from Professor Sari di Chaining Room. Okay, I have a question that might be out of the topic. Indonesia has one of the biggest population with abundance of skilled human resources. In terms of research about diseases, cancer, and other topics in biology, we are more in the position of following the other countries than actually joining in the ring of leaders. Do you have any advice for us as researchers and academics in UNESA how to motivate ourselves and improve our research. That could be in terms of quality and also the depth of the research itself. Thank you.
Yeah, it's an excellent question. Thank you. And it's a great problem. Even in our country, you know, the research is getting more and more expensive. And yeah, you have always to look at any penny, what you can do and not. So that is, but in your countries, the problem is exponential, of course. And my advice here is, we do now more and more data, as I also indicate already. There's more and more data sets on tumors, on biological functions with next generation sequencing, which are public domain. And we have so much information in these databases, and usually people generate these databases for some questions to answer. But I think you can, with your computer skills, and you have extraordinary computer skills, you can use these databases to do your independent analysis where you don't need to do the experiment. Experiment has been done already, but people have used this information for other purposes. So if you are smart, you use artificial intelligence, all these data, you can integrate data sets from different tumors. And I have a PLAS paper as an example with Mark Hogenberg, which you can read, where we basically used databases from other people in order to make our story. So my advice is, yes, you can also play with the big shots and question their results or dive into new matters. It's just that you have to formulate interesting questions that no one maybe has addressed yet, and then think about something smart. Hey, which data sets are out there that I could use? And I think there's a big source and a big opportunity over there, and also for and that's the future, I think, because biology is, well, how to say, it's more an accurate science now. And it's not any more descriptive. We can measure really with next generation sequencing very accurate changes in expression, in gene accessibility, in mutagenesis, you name it. And I think there is a lot of opportunity for you to contribute. Absolutely. And that can be, you can sit and collaborate with all people in the world. If you just have some skills that you can develop yourself, like our skills, and then you can be helpful and contributing to the problem. And it doesn't matter where we are sitting in the world. We can always collaborate, and that is, I think, a great opportunity because the data sets are public available.
Thank you for the answer. Prof. Sari, is he answer the question? She's here.
Yes, thank you very much from Mr. Hein.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for both speakers to answer all the questions and also all the participants that already asked questions. I would like to close the second plenary and Q&A session. On behalf of the committee and all participants, I would like to thank you both speakers for taking time to share with us and also be with us for every informative, interesting, and insightful presentation. And also all the participants for the attention and also their participations. Finally, I would like to apologize for my mistake in presenting this session. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and I will give back the time and room to the MC.
Thank you very much for the moderator, so Ms. Fitriari Muhaimin, for having successfully led the plenary sessions with the two keynote speakers, Dr. Jacob Hines and also Professor Muhammad Najib bin Muhammad Yasin of Malaysia. So thank you very much for the keynote speakers, for the insights and idea and sharing some emerging issues both in Malaysia and also in the Netherlands. So, ladies and gentlemen, delegates, as the fourth keynote speakers ended the presentations on the second sessions, so it indicates the end of the morning session of the plenary session. So we will be proceeding to the parallel sessions after the break. So we have some information for you to join again to the breakout rooms at 1 p.m. So I hope that you will be joining the breakout rooms earlier. So the breakout rooms is opens at 12:45 p.m. and the parallel sessions will start at 1 p.m. Jakarta time. So the invitations of the joining the breakout rooms has been set by the committee again. So please, we will encourage you to join as early as possible at 12:45 so we can start the parallel sessions on time. So as you enter the rooms later on, please make sure that you have set and rename your name based on the guidelines and also your name and also the rooms. So each rooms, in the rooms, the committee will help you and lead the sessions respectively. So once again, thank you very much, and I'll see you again at 12:45 as the breakout rooms are opens, and we'll start the parallel sessions at 1 p.m. on time. Thank you very much, and we'll have a break.